The Champions League is officially back, kicking off tomorrow with some juicy fixtures, to say the least. Today, we are going to go through them all in terms of all the English clubs, that is. We're going to give our score predictions and analysis on each of the big games. Let's get straight into it. We'll go in a chronological order. Kicking us off tomorrow, 5:45, Athletic Bilbao versus Arsenal. Reese, no better place to start than for yourself. How are you feeling about this game back in the Champions League again? Are you confident? Because it's not an easy game.
No, you're right. It's not an easy game. As I've mentioned last year when we did this and even the year before, one of Arsenal's biggest issues is they struggle going away to teams of this level is probably not the right word, but maybe of this quality. The team that probably finishes around fourth, fifth, sixth, anywhere around that. We saw it last year with Atalanta. We saw it the year before going to Rennes as well. And we've seen it in the Premier League. They struggled away to Villa one year, struggled at St James's Park, losing at home to Villa in 2024 was obviously detrimental to their title hopes. So this is Arsenal's Achilles heel, in my opinion. And I think it's probably, as silly as it sounds, probably one of, if not the hardest game they've got in this overall run. I know we can dip into the other games in a little while, but it's important they get off to a good start nonetheless. I know, as PSG showed, it's not how you start, it's how you finish. But if Arsenal want to be taken seriously and not just become a meme or Netflix FC, however they're known, they want to be getting a result in these games, in these grounds. And Bilbao are not an easy side to beat. They're going to be tough to break down. They've had a good start in the Liga. We can point towards them getting dumped out of the Europa League last year by United, but that was last year. This is now, and Arsenal need to get off to a good start. However, I don't think they're going to be too disappointed if they come away with a point.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing I will say on that is I agree with you. It's a tough place to go. We know they're a good side, but for me, I'm just looking at their last game. Like I'm looking at it, going, they've lost 1-0 at home to Alvarez. I can't even say their name. Alaves, um, Julian Alaves. But yeah, that's the result I'm looking at, to be honest. Um, if they can lose 1-0 at home to them, for me, I think although it's tough, I can't really see past an Arsenal win here. Jamie, what's your thoughts?
I think this is the pressure. This is the most pressured game for Arsenal in the sort of matches for the group stages, because when they go away. Is it away to Atletico, and home to Bayern in the sort of two fixtures, or maybe the other way around? Correct me if I'm wrong. There's a bit less pressure on them. Sort of the Bayern game, Bayern could be terrific, and if they beat you, you kind of go, you know what, Bayern are a top side. Atletico, they can kick you, they can be dirty, they can, ruffle up your feathers, and couldn't surprise you in the result. This is a game that everyone's expecting Arsenal to win, and it's away from home. Yes, they've done well in the league so far. They were nearly 4 for 4 if they'd beaten the team on the weekend, but they've not played. I don't think they've played many teams that are great. Sevilla's the best sort of side, and that was on the opening weekend. I think it also seems, apart from that game, they're struggling to score. They've only scored, I think, one in most of their games. So, and Arsenal are very good defensively. And I'm sure Arteta will be here going, right, we're not, like, he's going to set up a bit more defensively than he would if they were playing at home. So I do think Arsenal will win, but there is pressure on this game straight from the off, not to get to a bad start, and because I think this will be the hardest game they've got, that they're expected to win.
Mm. Yeah, before we obviously move on, Bilbao are a good side. It was an own goal that they lost to, in the week, and I know that both sides met in pre-season as well, with Arsenal winning 3-0. But yeah, it's I think, Bilbao have all their attention on this game. It's as simple as that, and it's how Arsenal navigate that is up to them. But I think Arsenal will have enough quality through the next round of games to get through anyway, so it's not the worst result in the world. But you don't want to start off on a loss. Arsenal need to get over this hoodoo of not beating teams like this away from home. However, if they do win, they actually create history, an unprecedented continental feat. If they win this tie, they'll become the first side to ever beat Spanish teams 6 times in a row. since the European Cup Champions League. They've beaten Real Madrid twice, Seville twice, and Girona since 2023.
You best believe Arteta knows that stat as well, already. If you do win,
He's
um,
from the Basque Country, Arteta, bearing in mind as well. So he's definitely local to those parts.
all right. Score predictions. I'm going to go 2-0 Arsenal. What do you boys think?
I've written down the exact same score. I think Arsenal will be too good defensively, and we'll get a couple of goals out there.
1-1.
Cool. All right. Let's move on to the other side of North London. Spurs versus Villarreal. Again, English versus Spanish. What do we make of this one?
Uh, this should be a very comfortable result for Spurs. Villarreal are not a bad side. Let's make that perfectly clear. They're not a bad side, but Spurs are organised. Spurs look so much better under Thomas Frank. However, as we do know that Spurs are susceptible to a loss at home, like they did to Bournemouth. But Spurs should have too much for Villarreal in this game, really.
I think if we talk about sort of like the Bilbao situation as well, Villarreal have had a decent start as well, and you got to remember their defeats against Atletico. That was on the weekend as well. Like Atletico, they're expected to lose, so they've actually had an all right start to the season. Um, be with it being at Spurs once again, I actually think this is a huge pressure on Spurs. This is a game they're expected to win. Their fans will be sort of going, right, this is a home game, not one out of the pot one teams. We need to be winning this if you're going to be climbing towards the sort of top eight figures. So there is pressure on Spurs. They had a nice win against West Ham on the weekend. So I would expect Spurs to win, but I think Villarreal will frustrate Tottenham. And I think it's whether they get over that frustration. If Spurs score early, it'll be a comfortable win. But if it gets to sort of, 60, 65 minutes, Spurs will need to sort of not get frustrated and then blow the game away. Because if it gets that late and they're getting frustrated just going gun-ho for it, they'll go and lose. That's kind of how I see this game going. I think if Spurs get an early goal, it'll be a walk in the park. But they need to make sure that if they don't get the early goal, that they will still manage it properly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think. Sorry, go on, Reece.
No, I was just saying they've got a few injury problems, Villarreal, but they are capable of frustrating Spurs. We can expect Nicolas Pepe to play, Thomas Partey to play. So we've got two former Arsenal players there. And they've also got Milero, who's made a really good start for them for the Yellow Submarine. So watch him do some, cause that defence a lot of issues as well.
Yeah, I don't think this will be a walk in the park, actually. I kind of agree on whoever scores the first goal could take it. But Villarreal, they're a seasoned side. They know they've been here before. I know it's been predominantly in Europa, but they're a good enough side to frustrate Spurs. And as you said, all the pressures on Spurs being at home, being back in the Champions League. So I think this could be quite a tight game. And I can see if Villarreal did get the first goal, I think it could be a long night for Spurs. Um, but yeah, score predictions wise, I think they may just have the quality to nick it. So I'm going to go 2-1 Spurs. What do you boys think?
I've gone 1-0 Spurs. I think Thomas Frank won't. Basically, he'll be happy with the lead and won't go too much into it. So he'll keep a comfortable 1-0 win.
2-1 Spurs for me, and I'm not going to be surprised if Villarreal take the lead. I'm actually going to go with Nicolas Pepe to score.
And Party, sorry. Um, right, let's move on to the big fixture on Wednesday. Arguably the pick of the tie. Champions of Germany versus the champions of the world. I've got to get that in there, of course. Bayern Munich versus Chelsea. I mean, it's not an ideal start. It's probably one of the top three fixtures you don't want to reignite a Champions League campaign for us. Um, and of course, our boys Hamburg decided to give Bayern Munich a nice confidence boost at the weekend, so that was great. Um, I'll let you boys speak first, actually, before I say my opinion. Jamie, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, it's a tough one to start off with, but actually it might be also one good to just get out the way. Because when you're working out towards the end, where you're like, oh, I need three, we need 3 points to get into the top eight, or 3 points just to get through. You don't want this fixture then, because Bayern might also need 3 points for whatever reason. So I think getting it out of the way might be a good thing for Chelsea. In terms of the game, I'll be honest. Sort of, I think Bayern, like you said, with the Hamburg game, they've had a nice, comfortable win because they were 4-0 up in the first half. So they've been able. I haven't seen the substitutions, but I'm sure the company would have rested players, got players off, ready for the Champions League because they're playing Chelsea. So they're in a better stead where Chelsea, late goal, 2-2 draw. It's it's one where I think Bayern are just ready for it more. Got to be ready for it more. So I'm expecting Bayern to win, but it's not the end of the world for Chelsea. You don't have to win. You don't have to win the group table to do it. It's ideal if you get the top eight, so you play two less games. But it's not the end of the world. This is the hardest fixture you've got. So I it doesn't. I don't think it matters too much on Chelsea. Chelsea can't get a result. It's great. Like it's only a plus side if you get a result. But if you lose, it's not the end of the world.
Yeah, I'm in agreement. I think Chelsea can play with the shackles off a little bit. Um, Bayern Munich have been outstanding. Got off to a great start, and they've been very dominant as we've seen in the league. Um, and a lot of people have probably tipped these as one of the favourites to win if you look at the quality of that squad all throughout. But as we've seen, Chelsea are probably the best team in England of taking it to the big boys, turn PSG over in the final, for example. Um, and they're more than capable of doing that to Bayern Munich. However, before I go on about Bayern Munich a little bit more, do you know the last time Bayern Munich lost their opening game of a Champions League?
I mean, they've got some serious records in Champions League. I 15 years ago, maybe, as a random guess.
Jamie?
Not a clue, but was it last time to Chelsea or something like that?
Bayern Munich have won the last 22 first opening games of a Champions League season. Their last defeat coming in, well, their last failure to win was in 2002. Can you name the team it was against?
2002. I'm gonna go like Shakhtar or something like that.
Yeah, not a clue. I'm going to just throw in Chelsea just because it might be why you've said it.
You're both wrong, but it
Yeah.
was the fallen giants of Deportivo. There you go. So it goes to show that Bayern are suspectable. If they're going to lose, it's to a team you probably don't expect them to lose to. But that record is astonishing, and hence why it's such a daunting feat for Chelsea and Bavaria. But I know that a lot of people say that if anyone's going to stop Bayern Munich losing, it's Vincent Company himself, which I think is a bit harsh from what I've seen, but I understand where that's coming from. So Chelsea can go in here and cause an upset, but Bayern Munich are under more pressure to get off to a good start because they've got some pretty tough games in this competition.
Yeah, it's a tough one. You look at Bayern's start and it's 6-0 at home to Leipzig, 5-0 at home to Hamburg, 3-2 away. What's that? 14 goals in 3 games. I mean, I know it's the German league, but that is slightly terrifying. Um, but as you said, the other argument is they've not been tested by a proper side yet. On our day, as you saw in the Club World Cup, there's no better big match team who are capable of putting a result. So I'm excited to be back. To be honest, as you said, as you boys both said, to some degree, I don't like saying it because it sounds like we're accepting defeat, but it is a bit of a free hit. As long as we don't go there and get spanked 5-0, which I'd be very, very surprised if that happened. But yeah, we're on a tough run of away games, 4 in a row in 10 days. I think we've just got to go there and compete. Personally, for my score predictions, I think it could be quite an open game. So I'm going to go for a 2-all draw. But yeah, this will be a really good test to see where we're at. But it's not going to be easy, obviously. What do you guys think?
I've gone 3-1 Bayern. I see you scoring. However, I've said it. I've said it before. The reason I just don't think Chelsea's defence is brilliant, and that's what's going to cause problems when you've got the likes of Kane and Luis Diaz. They're going to come through, and I think they will score a few goals. But look, if Chelsea got a 1-1 draw, and they sort of sat back a bit more, frustrated Bayern, I wouldn't. I'd be slightly shocked because I'd expect Bayern to win, but I wouldn't be like, "Oh my god, it's the biggest upset in the world." But yeah, 3-1 Bayern is what I think will happen though.
Yeah, it's a tough one. I think it depends on who scores first or when the goals are scored. I'm going to go with Bayern Munich 2-1, but that's if, of course, if, Chelsea frustrate and frustrate and frustrate and they eventually, you know, knock the door down. However, if it's as it could go with Bayern's attack, this could end up a 3-3. But I'll stick with 2-1 Bayern Munich.
Cool. Let's move on to Thursday. Yes, there is games on Thursday. It is the Champions League. Welcome to the new era. Another tasty tie. Newcastle versus Barcelona. What a game. Newcastle obviously back in the Champions League. Didn't quite work out for them first time well, not first time, but didn't work out from recently, let's say, with a bit of disappointment. How do we think they're going to fare against Barcelona, who are absolutely flying as always?
This is sort of like it's a perfect game for Newcastle because they want to be playing in these games. I'll be honest, I think it's realistic to say they're not going to win it. And these are the games you want to be in it when you're not always in the Champions League. So them getting Barcelona, at home is a great tie for them. They can, make St James's Park absolutely sort of, terrifying for teams to come to. And because it's Barcelona, it's a huge team, so they've got to be up for it. Now Barcelona are very good. It's not going to be the first time they've gone to a stadium that's, terrifying to play at. But it's also it doesn't mean they don't lose at these places. It's really tough to know how it's going to go because I think it depends on what level of physicality is allowed by the ref. If the ref lets it go a little bit, Newcastle could bully Barcelona. I absolutely bully them. But if it gets blown up a bit more, like it normally does in the Champions League, you sort of the Newcastle players could be on the edge of getting sent off. So for me, it is a tough one, but I think Newcastle are going to give it a full go. You've got to remember when they played PSG 2 years ago, and they battered them, absolutely battered them, and deserved to win. So it doesn't mean Newcastle can't do it, but it's a tough feat with Barcelona because I think Barcelona are a better side than what that PSG team were. So I'm leaning more towards a Barcelona sort of win, but Newcastle can definitely take it to them. And if they do, I say, allow that sort of physicality a bit more, they could actually run riot against them.
Yeah, I really like that point about the ref, actually. I think that's good analysis because it's so true. We know what's going to happen with the crowd. We know Newcastle are going to go all guns blazing from minute one. And I think we saw against Liverpool what they are capable of. I was listening earlier and the stat in the Prem. I know Newcastle haven't had the perfect start, but I think they're one of the lowest teams for XG against. So even against a 10-man Liverpool, they're still one of the lowest shots conceded in the league. Or goals, you know what XG conceded means. But I think that was quite interesting because I think it suggests that actually maybe Newcastle have been, at least defensively, slightly better than maybe we've given them credit for. And I'm just looking at Barcelona's team, and look, this is contradictory because they absolutely spanked Valencia 6-0 at home. But I look at their starting lineup for that game. Bear in mind, Yamal is out. You've got Torres, you've got Lopez, you've got Rashford, you've got Bardghji. Mark Casado. It doesn't scream big characters. it doesn't scream that they're going to stand up and be counted for, you know, away to Newcastle. So I do actually think Newcastle could go all guns blazing and get a result here. Maybe capitalise on a few of the Barcelona injuries. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to watching this one actually because I think it could be a really good game.
Yeah, with everything pointing towards Barcelona winning this game, this is exactly what Newcastle want. They thrive on that unfancied tag. How many times does this team turn up under Eddie Howe and upset the big boys? Um, I think, it looks like Lamine Yamal's out, right? And then you think, oh, that's a good sign. Then you realise they've still got, Rafinha up front, Lopez, Torres. It's a scary, scary attack. Um, but Newcastle are no mugs. They love, like I said, they love playing against the big boys. And if they use their new German centre forward up there, it causes that defence all sorts of problems, which is what they should be doing. I think they got off to a good start in their last Champions League campaign and filtered out towards the end. So losing is probably better for them in order to gain momentum, but this isn't a group stage anymore, right? This does have the making of a bit of a classic because I think both teams are going to go for this, and I don't think Barcelona will like going towards the cauldron at St James's Park. Um, but it's how Newcastle cope with the situation that's important. But Eddie Howe is the best at that. I'm going to go for a score draw here. I'm going to go 2-2.
I'll go. I'll stick with what I said. Newcastle 2, Barcelona 1.
Well, all three of us thinking different then, because I'm going with Barca 2, Newcastle 1.
There you go. Another big game at Anfield. Liverpool versus Atletico Madrid. Attack versus defense. Again, another game I'm looking forward to here. How do we think this one's going to play out?
Um, this is a tough one to call. Atletico have not got off to the best of start. They're currently in a real building process, reducing the average age of the squad and spending big nonetheless. And they seem to be slowly clicking into gear. Liverpool, many would argue that they've not got off to a great start. However, they're on 100% marks so far in their exam. They've got all their wins, all of them scoring winning goals in the last 10 minutes. It makes you wonder how often can they continue this, especially against a team like Atletico Madrid, who we know are going to frustrate you. They're going to kick you. They're going to make your life a misery. So how did Liverpool overcome that? This is a real big test for Liverpool because regardless of it being at Anfield, they're under pressure because people are asking how many games can they keep going where they leave it so late. And I think Atletico Madrid are the perfect example of a team to see where they're at.
I think Liverpool are thankful this is at home. You wouldn't want this game away just because of what Atletico are like. And when they do it at home, they've got the crowd behind them for it. This may not be great for Liverpool in terms of being kicked because that is 100% a guarantee. But I actually think it's actually a good opportunity for Liverpool to turn their performances around. Because I don't think they've been great performance wise, despite getting the wins. Like the Newcastle game we mentioned, they're against 10 men and Newcastle were the better team. They got the win though. The Burnley game, you got a penalty very, very late on, but you got the win. It sometimes does matter. If you don't play well and you get the win, that's fine. But you just can't keep underperforming because it will run out. Your luck will run out. And I think this could be a great time to turn it around because they're at home, because it's a good team. I think it will be a good fixture for Liverpool. Now the physios may disagree after the game where they've got a lot of work to do, but I do feel like it's a game that I think will be better for Liverpool because they're at home.
I see it slightly differently. I think this is the perfect fixture to expose Liverpool and actually someone take advantage. Because you look at Atletico's start and it's actually been underwhelming. But I don't think that matters. I think Simeone's side is one that form is irrelevant. They go into Anfield, they go into the Champions of England. This is their cup final. They know they're on the big stage. They know they can make a mark. And I think they can get a result here. because we've seen Liverpool, they've got away with it. Liverpool fans will say it's what champions do. Champions don't get lucky every game. Champions nick it in big moments, but to do that 4 games in a row is more luck than skill. Let's be honest. So I'm intrigued to see how this plays out, but I won't be that surprised if Liverpool don't win here, which I know sounds a bit crazy to say given that they just keep winning, but yeah, I think they're going to get exposed a little bit here. So my prediction's going to be 1-1.
I'm going for a 2-0 Liverpool win. I think they will perform better. Atletico will frustrate you, don't get me wrong. But yeah, I just think they're a bit. I think they will sort of have a better performance and a nice win.
Um, I know we're saying about Liverpool, but they have tightened up defensively, even if it's at the expense of the attack. Um, which is probably they probably need to go the other way against Atletico Madrid because they need to take advantage of these injury problems Simeone has, and I don't think Atletico are going to be too fussed if they lose. However, I know that Simeone is that kind of guy, so I'm going to go with 0-0.
All right, there you have it. Last but not least, the big one on Thursday night as well. Man City versus Napoli. Jamie, we've got to start with you on this one. Back to City's best, maybe. That might be a stretch too far. Obviously beating United 3-0. Are you feeling much more confident about this game?
Well, first of all, it's the return of Kevin De Bruyne coming back
Oh yeah.
from now in Napoli blue. He still went with the blue, and he's got the same away kit. Funnily enough, in black there, so it's like he's in City colours anyway. But yeah, so it's going to be an interesting game this because I think we're playing the best team in Italy, and they are a very good side. What they lack is what it seems to be sort of the European performances. I don't remember too many brilliant Napoli ones, especially when they had that season a few seasons ago where they won the league. They weren't great in the Champions League. However, saying that, City aren't at their best. I did a TikTok on it where we we did what we needed to do against United, but we still were sort of sloppy. We created so many problems for ourselves, sort of just when we slipped, misplaced passes, things like that. It wasn't a perfect performance, but once we scored the first goal, we did improve. Whereas, sort of when we scored against Brighton, we kind of relaxed a bit. So I think hopefully that means we're not going to do that. But why we're playing on a Thursday is utterly ridiculous. We're not a Europa League side, but here we are having to deal with that sort of rubbish. But yeah, it's a tough one. This I don't think it's as straightforward as what I think some people will think it will be. I think this will be a tough game for us.
Yeah, I mean Napoli have started well, perfect start, 3 wins out of three. Hoyland's even got a goal. Kevin De Bruyne is their top scorer on two. So as good as they are, if this was away at Napoli, I'd go, yeah, City are going to actually genuinely have a problem here. But I think now the bit of confidence from the Derby win, I think City will edge this. I agree, it's not going to be a walk in the park. Obviously, Napoli are a good side, but I do think City will have enough quality, momentum, whatever you want to call it, to take advantage. And I think a side relying on, obviously, look, he's world class, we know that, but Kevin De Bruyne is on the tail end of his career, let's say, and they're relying on him still for all their goals. So I think City will edge this personally.
Yeah, it's a tough, interesting one. This obviously Conte has a very good record against Guardiola, but Napoli have a pretty stinking record going to England. I would argue that yes, Napoli are the best team in Italy by a country mile, and but I expect them to get pinned back to a lot by City, and you know it's how the likes of Hoyland and De Bruyne perform, which I'm sure they're going to be there with a point to prove. But I think City are going to have too much for them. Um, as much as I like this Napoli side, no disrespect to them, but if you stuck them in the Premier League, would they be in the top four? I'm not 100% sure. I think City will have too much for them in this game. But I don't think City are going to break a sweat because they've got Arsenal on Sunday. So I think they're going to look to score and shut up shop. So I'm going to say 2-0 City.
I'll go 2-1 City.
I've got 2-1 City as well. Just sort of edging it out.
That wraps us up. That is all we got time for. As always, hit us up with your score predictions in the comments below. But as always, like, comment, and subscribe. You know the drill.